Well, the Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria, that's the AMBCN, have shut down operations due to rising costs of production of bread and related products. The association said the withdrawal of their services was caused by the incessant increase in prices of baking materials, especially flour and sugar. The bread makers and caterers say the soaring costs of production materials have pushed many out of business, and calling on the federal government to allow them benefit from the Cassava Intervention Fund, which, according to him, has accrued over the years. A cross-section of Nigerians voiced their concerns on the rising cost of bread.
Because I eat bread almost every day. Almost every day I eat bread. How are we going to do about it now? So should we join them and fight federal government? But as I said, we're going to find a way. We know Nigerians will definitely find a way to find solution to our problem. And that's the reason why you have to make money. So that no matter what they increase, we'll buy it.
It's like the dollar is already at 160 whatsoever today. So everything is going up. But the only problem now is incomes are not going up, but your expenditures are rising. So I think they have a valid point, but they should as well consider us while they're doing this thing. Bread is good, bread is life.
It's the majority of people who really depend on things like bread, and they literally have to eat it every day. For those people who have like 5-10 children and they have to share a loaf of bread. Now it's not just the scarcity of bread, but the fact that it's even reduced in size. I know that I had to complain about that a little while ago. So I do feel for them, and I strongly believe that the government should try and do something about it.
And what exactly government has to do is what we're going to be finding out from our guest, Jude Okafor. He's the National Secretary, Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria in Asaba, Delta State. And Segun Olowe, the Financial Secretary, Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria, a Lagos State chapter. They are guests this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on the Arise interview. Well, let me just start with Jude Okafor. Paint a picture exactly how bad it is. How was it before now? Maybe before, Russia-Ukraine war, and now. What has changed in terms of, access to, whether it's funding, access to baking materials, and all of that? Jude.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. The changes that has occurred after the COVID-19, after the Russian-Ukrainian war, has been very, very massive. It has been massive, but because before the Russian-Ukrainian war, a bag of flour then was about approximately 19,000 naira per bag. The other components we use in making bread, like sugar, yeast, and the rest of them, have equally gone up. Equally affected massively is sugar. We equally have the issue of diesel, which has shot to high heavens. So what the master bakers are experiencing currently is better imagined. And as it is, it has really led to closure of some of our members, and imminent closure, staring the survivor ones in their faces. Hence, we are appealing to federal government to intervene before this sector that employs second largest labor population after the federal government is thrown into the unemployment market.
Yes, indeed. Okay, let me bring in Segun Olowe. Let's get his side of it. Segun, your experience, would like to know exactly what it was like before and now. Exactly what, in your estimation, has, brought the baking industry to where it is right now, that there are concerns it may collapse if something is not done sooner than later.
Thank you for having me. We have been facing the problem for past 2 years since the inception of COVID issue. The price of everything we are using for production of bread have been rising Like flour was 10,000 then, it's now 29 to 30,000. Sugar was 12,000 then, sugar is now 28 to 29,000. We usually purchase a carton of butter at rate of 5,600, is now over 20,000. You can't talk of diesel, energy to get the work done, the cost of workers, everything, nothing is working, the high price of raw materials, the overhead, the company that we have to produce bread, they are not sustainable. The industry is facing stiff challenges in the area of finance. Even our capital that we were using before is not enough to cope with the business. So all what we are doing now is to struggle to survive. And we are pleading to federal government of Nigeria to look into our plight and to do something to rescue the situation. If nothing is done by now, I don't know, maybe next few months, we are still going to have bread in this nation.
Wow, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, our daily prayer is give us this day our daily bread, and bakers are about to take it out of our mouth. Or should I say, is it government's inaction? But I'll try to find out exactly from, both of you, what, in terms of intervention, you really, just hold on, exactly what kind of interventions you want government to, step in on. But let me ask first off, Jude, are there alternatives, that you can source locally? What are the alternative components or components of, making bread that you can actually source locally without having to rely on Russia or Ukraine and all of that, and not be vulnerable to the, global shocks to supply chain? Jude.
You see, okay, thank you very much. You see, that is the issue, part of the issue we are having with government on this particular subject. Before the advent of the Russian-Ukrainian war, we have made efforts to get government to be able to, support the program of inclusion of other tubers like potato and cassava into flour. You see, that was even before coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic. You see, we have equally gone to the extent of supporting a bill in the National Assembly to make it mandatory for millers to add a certain percentage of cassava or other sorghum and other ones that will grow locally, so that the pressure on wheat importation would have been reduced. That was many years ago. Up till now, that legislation is not passed. It will surprise you to note that even before during the period of the previous former Minister of Agric, that is the President of African Development Bank, we had this cassava added to wheat flour, a little bit of it, and it was launched in Nikon Loga in Abuja, and we started using it. All of a sudden, after about 2 months, the other administration left office, it disappeared. We're no longer getting it. We have other variables that can be added. So the government have to have the political will to pass that legislation so that the millers can at least add our local sorghum, potato or cassava to the flour, and it becomes mandatory. That way, you can put down the price of flour down. And this equally adds to the fact that we have clamored, we have appealed over the years, over 2 years now, that the 15% wheat levy that was imposed in 2012 should be cancelled. It should be taken out of the tariff that the millers used to pay whenever they import wheat. This 15% wheat levy was originally designed for a purpose, and today that purpose is no longer being met. All the accruals to that fund have not been utilized to serve its purpose. And today, the bakers, or in the last 2 years, bakers have clamored that this 15% levy be taken away. All other extraneous charges that recently they have imposed on imported wheat that makes the flour millers to pay much when they are bringing this wheat to should be at least suspended for now, because we are having food crisis in our hands. Going further, when all these things are done, the wheat levy suspended, those other levies they charge the millers when this wheat is imported, suspended for now if they cannot cancel it. When the economic climate is clearer, maybe after the Ukrainian-Russian war, they can talk about reintroducing them. They have to be suspended for now so that the cost of bringing in the wheat will be reduced, which will now rub off on the final price of flour. You talk about flour. There are other issues that are very, very germane to the reason why we are having this withdrawal of services. Sugar, which is another big major component in bread making. Sugar, of course, comes from Brazil and some other places. It is not. There's nothing that Ukraine and Russia had to do with sugar. But sugar have risen from 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 before just about we'll say about 3-4 weeks ago. What we had was that sugar companies were doing turnaround maintenance. Then sugar was about 21,500 naira. Immediately they come back to start selling sugar after about 3 weeks. The sugar has gone to 30,000 naira. And this is a sugar companies that are being given dollar at preferential CBN window because of their so-called backward integration. So government have to come in and check this, and we have requested for license to bring in sugar. At least master bakers should be given the license to bring in sugar, which we should use in making this bread.
If I get you if I get you clearly, Jude, almost every component that you've mentioned in the baking, process can actually be sourced locally. I know that the federal government, there was an attempt, to do or to replicate what the government has done with rice, with wheat, because look, the fact is that Nigeria can grow wheat enough not to even think of importing wheat, and even sugar that you talk about. I mean, sugar cane is grown everywhere in every part of this country. So the major problem is this, components that can be sourced locally remain imported largely. And that seems to be where, the crux of the matter. Segun Olowe, Jude talks about 15% levy, wheat levy. It's a major problem. But what are the other issues that you think government really needs to address and very quickly too?
As at last year, when we were in National Assembly, the 15% level has accumulated to over 500 billion naira. 500 billion naira. Government refused to release this money to meet the need of bakers. Apart from that, we need grants from that money. That money is our money. It was agreed during the President Obasanjo and Jonathan era that money will be gathered to be invested back into the industry. Now we don't have that investment. Despite the challenges we are facing in other African nations, government is coming in to reduce the price of raw material for the production of bread, which is the second largest consuming food in Nigeria after rice. Government has not done anything. We need grants because our capital is not enough to prosecute our business. As of today, many bakeries are dying. A lot of workers are being laid off because the business is no more sustainable. Diesel has risen from 200 naira per liter to over 800 naira, 900 naira per liter. So with this overhead and other costs, except there is intervention from government, there is no way we can continue with this business, except Nigerians may not be able to find bread again.
And we hope that day never comes. Segun Olowe, let me stay with you. Have you in any way as an association, I mean, you have different, bakers and confectionaries associations across the country, master bakers, of course, Jude belongs to the master bakers. Have you as, associations or groups or maybe individual bakers approached the federal government, maybe through the Central Bank of Nigeria? Because we do know that the Central Bank has the anchor borrower scheme, for rice and other, farmers. Have you in any way approached the CBN? What has been the response?
Yes, we have done that. We have done that. Early this year, we were in National Assembly. National Assembly invited CBN and Bank of Industry, and they promised to give us one-digit loan, single-digit loan with grants. But since then, even out of our money that was collected from our excess payments, nothing was done about it. All we had is promise. The office of the Vice President met us early this year, and there was promise that something will be done. Till now, we have not heard from them. All our effort, nothing has been done. Please, let government help us so that Nigerians will have something to eat, the workers can be sustained in the business, and we too, that we have families, we can do something and meet the need of those that rely on us. We really need their help. Something must be done now before it's too late.
All right, Jude, let me ask you the same question. And in addition to that, whether you've done anything about approaching the federal government through the Central Bank of Nigeria as master bakers that you belong to. I mean, have you done that? What has the response been?
We have done that severally, but most recently we met with the Ministry of Trade and Investment and made all these requests, and we were asked to send in a list of most distressed bakers, which we did. That was about a year ago. But by June this year, they said they've now transferred the request to NAFDAC office. We went to NAFDAC, acknowledged it. What is happening? They said they are working on it. What is still happening? Well, that was what was sent in July last year. By this year, July, they were just saying they are still working on it. Recently, equally, when we had another meeting with the Ministry of Trade and Investment, we alerted them of the bakeries that are closing at a very fast rate. They now requested that those who have closed now, we should be able to get their names. And we went around the country, got the names, and sent to them. Look at those that have closed, please.
And
the other ones that are surviving just up till now. Nothing has happened.
And I'd like to know exactly how you have been, staying afloat. Jude, let me stay with you before I go to Segun. In this part of the world, sometimes people try to cut corners, maybe reduce the quantity of flour, quantity of sugar, and all other components of making bread. Have you had to do that? Because I recall the last time I went to buy bread, not too long ago, the usual 500 naira loaf of bread is now 800. In some instances, it's about 1,000 naira. And it doesn't seem to be the same size. What have you been doing in terms of, just staying afloat, ensuring that bread remains on the shelves?
That is exactly why we embarked on this national renewal of services. You see, we have been increasing the prices of bread in the last 6 months more than 8-10 times. You have been increasing, and the people that are patronizing us, the customers that buy this bread, are leaving the bread. They are beginning to abandon bread. They are beginning to look for other alternatives to eat. And we are beginning to understand that our industry is just facing imminent collapse. So the last increase that the flour millers made about 3 weeks ago, they added to 2,000 naira per bag, which amounts to 1.2 million naira per truck of flour. We have not even reacted on that. We now sat in our neck and said, if we go ahead and increase now, the people that are buying this bread, we keep running away. It is better we'll find a way to address this matter than continuing increase. So what the bakers are really doing now, they are managing credits. Every baker, the average Nigerian master baker today, you can go and conduct an independent inquiry. Over 80%, they are massively indebted. Of course, they no longer have any working capital. They depend on getting flour from various dealers, all the ingredients from various dealers on credit basis. And by the end of the day, almost all of them, we already know this, 70% of our members, or about 80%, have already closed. They have already shut down. They're only surviving on those credit they have gotten from all sources, which of course have made us to just be producing for producing sake. And that is why we felt that the best thing we would do as at now is to come in, because as an association, we are regulated by NAFDAC and other agencies. Even independently, we regulate ourselves. We will not compromise the quality of the bread we give to the Nigerian public on the altar of breaking even and making profit. We don't do that. That is why we keep making this effort.
But don't you think the strike, before I go to Segun very quickly, in 30 seconds if you can, Jude, the strike, will it not be counterproductive? What do you really hope to achieve with the strike? Will it really draw the kind of attention you're expecting?
What we have done, of course, is a warning strike to the federal government. It's not even a strike, so to speak. What we have done is to withdraw our services. We are not a paid employee of government. We are self-employed. What we did is to alert them. You cannot beat a child and refuse the child a cry. Note, we are going to pay our workers for this 1 week. It's about 1 week that they are not working. We are going to bear the brunt. We want the federal government to see how painful it is to us. Rein in people like NAFDAC that have jacked up the registration of product cost, levies. Rein them in to abolish all these extraneous charges they have brought to bear. Before now, what we do is to pay 10,000 naira for registration. It has moved to over 100,000 naira. And as we speak, if you fail to register or renew your bread after a day, what you have is 156,000. Even those who are want to come into the industry, we are not receiving new members as we used to receive. So we are the essence of this withdrawal is to appeal to the federal government and make it get close to the ears of the government coffers or corridors for them to understand that this sector is really in deep distress.
Indeed.
And needed an urgent and immediate attention.
Bring in Segun Olowe before we wrap. Thank you so much. Segun Olowe, have you even had to lay off staff? Because Jude just talked about, I mean, you have overheads to pay and all of that. How have you been able to stay afloat?
We cannot compromise our standard because we are master bakers, and we cannot stop giving Nigerians healthy food to eat. In the area of ingredients, we have stayed to give the best of the ingredients to make our bread so that people will eat healthy food. But having said that, many of us, we are indebted, we can't service our debt. Not only that, we have to make sure that we encourage our workers, that they should still stay with us when we still remain in business. As at now, all we are asking for is government to intervene. We believe we have listening government, and they are going to come to our aid by the grace of God. So we are pleading to them. They should come at this point before it is too late. Imagine the number of people working in baking industry to be out of employment with what we are having presently. The rate of crime, many other things will go up. And we don't want that to happen in our nation. Government should please come in, remove all unnecessary payments, try to come up with a grant that will help us, and work with flour millers to make sure that the price comes down so that Nigerians can continue to avoid it. There is no essence of producing bread when your citizen cannot avoid it. And there's no way the business can be sustained. Many are out of business. All we want now is their intervention to make sure that we can do better.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Segun Olowe, member of the Master Bakers Association of Nigeria, speaking to us from Lagos. And Jude Okafor is he is the National Secretary, Association of Master Bakers. Thank you, both of you, gentlemen. And we do hope that our daily bread will remain daily.